Welcome. This is Dr. Benzinger on Health with secondopinion.org and our seminar on hormones. One of the first things I do in these cases, I think that's advantageous and beneficial, is just to look at some of the past articles that have come out, just some of the headings associated with them, and here they are. Analysis confirms HRT, hormone replacement therapy, increases stroke risk. Hormone therapy and weight affect asthma in women. PCBs, the exposure, is tied to menstrual cycle lengths and changes. Risks of hormone replacement, not surprising, the report says. The U.S. FDA warns that the Johnson & Johnson patch hormone levels sometimes are too high and certain people are not regulated consistently. Studies on the pill is refuted, and scientists whose data recently in health benefits associated with hormone disruptors seems to be in question. If you'll see the article right here, how to reduce pollution and its cancer risks seem to be related to hormone levels. High cancer risks in the air around our city, and this is the Indianapolis Star. Neighborhood faces increased cancer risks and deals with smoke and a few things like that. If you look at perchlorate damages the thyroid, which has to do with exactly what we've shown you. Perchlorates are widely used in manufacturing and frequently found in U.S. drinking water because often it's not filtered out of the water systems themselves. And we're having our kids drink it. Perchlorates fight iodine absorption and utilization in the thyroid gland, thus inducing thyroid-mimicked symptoms. So for some of those that are put on Synthroid or one of those type of thyroid replacement hormones and find that they have to go higher and higher, and they never felt that much better even with the medication, guess what? Perchlorates might be part of the problem. Produces thyroid dysfunction frequently. So in hormones, when they're unhappy, watch out. Names to know. The endocrine system. That is glands that secrete hormones internally, directly into the bloodstream. A hormone. It's a chemical messenger. It exerts regulatory and stimulatory effects on the body. It stimulates cells in the body to do certain things. Ovaries and testicles, that's the reproductive process of estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and a few other hormones. More names. The hypothalamus. We consider it the queen bee. Okay? It's in the center part of the brain and stimulates or suppresses the pituitary gland, which is the king. That's what we call it. The central area of the brain too, and produces hormones that control thyroid, adrenals, ovaries, and testicles, key hormone functions to your well-being. The thyroid's considered the princess. It's located in the neck here. It regulates the metabolism rate, body heat, growth, and bone growth, general growth and bone growth. So when we look at your metabolism rate, when your temperature is consistently low, the possibility of thyroid dysfunction is high. Parathyroid, it controls calcium levels in your bloodstream. Okay, that's why when they do a blood draw and they say your calcium levels are normal, it probably means your parathyroid's working fine, but it doesn't mean you're getting enough calcium in your diet. Don't get confused by those things and misled, okay? The adrenals is considered the prince. It sits above the kidneys, and it secretes many, many hormones and reactive hormones that are key to controlling stress throughout the entire body. If you want to talk about a stress hormone, it's the prince, adrenals, stress hormones, okay? Let's start off with the hypothalamus, the queen, okay? It's highly nervated. In other words, it has lots of nerves. It's kind of like if you ever went into one of these, the old Indiana Bells where they had all this wiring coming into the back and in the front, they're pushing in and putting into these little holes connections so that people can talk on the phone. That's about what the hypothalamus is like, except for there's millions more connections and ingoing and outgoing nerves into that area. It responds by telling the hypothalamus, the queen, kind of like my wife, telling me what to do, the king, the pituitary, what to do and how to respond to all this information that's coming in. So it's kind of like taking all the information that's coming in from the body, the pains that you might have, that you ate something that upset your stomach, somebody hurt your feelings, that your back is hurting, that you're not digesting certain proteins very well because your liver's not working right or certain medications are reacting abnormally. All that information is coming into the hypothalamus and it's fed to the pituitary gland so that the king can actually control massive amounts of response throughout the body through hormonal systems. Okay? So the pituitary directs control over the glands. When it's dysfunctioning, watch out, because pretty much all your hormones and your gland structures throughout the body are going to dysfunction. It's only the size of a pea, yet it does so much. Isn't it amazing? Something so tiny has such great control over the body. Every day it watches out and adjusts hormone levels as well as information throughout the entire body, so that the function and the balance of the hormone system keeps getting. So let's just say that one day we had some distinct problems occurring with stress, and it will keep everything else about the same, but push up a little bit more of the stress hormones out of the adrenal glands so that you feel a little bit better. Okay? And for those with chronic fatigue and things like that, you got to know many of these systems often are out of balance. It also sends emotional messages. Here's the thing to realize, and I think this is probably one of the things you need to realize that's probably so important. And if you've not gotten our stress seminar really breaks this down in detail so that you get it, and it makes, I can't tell you how much difference it makes. It's really key, okay? And that is this. Let's take an emotional event, an event that has hit you. It's one that you can't let go and you keep replaying over and over, but nobody knows, it's just you. What we know is the pituitary interprets that feeling and actually drops millions of little glycoproteins that then send messages to all the cells in your body saying, gee, here's the feeling that this person has. So while you think it's all in your mind and that's all that's happening, it's really affecting all the cells in your body as you replay it and replay it and replay it, and causes great amounts of stress and changes in your body. Very, very important. The pituitary is what's doing that, and the research on this is very, very distinct as to what it does. So when you have something that's hurting you and bothering you, dealing with it, getting it done, finishing it, forgiving it, and moving on is imperative to your well-being, or otherwise you're going to keep dropping these bad messages to the rest of the body and make you sick just because of what you think. So keep that in mind, okay? The endocrine axis stress system, okay, are broken down into certain sections, okay? What we know is, in general, if we can eliminate refined carbohydrates, alcohol, and caffeine in pops, coffee, teas, chocolates that come from the diet, it's positive. If you increase your fruits and vegetables, it helps that system, the hypothalamus, pituitary, work better. And lots of pure water without perchlorides in it is a big deal, okay? And adequate exercise seems to help regulate your endocrine system. When we look at a hyperpituitary, in other words, one that's overworking, here's some of the symptoms to look at. Sex drive increases, splitting type of headaches, memory failure, okay, or just can't retain certain things and it's getting more and more aggressive. Tolerance for sugar reduces, so you just can't eat as much junk food and feel decent anymore. Sex drive reduces or is absent. Abnormal thirst. Oh, and forgive me, I forgot to section this off. This is the hypopituitary, because remember, hyper was sex drive increases, okay? Hypopituitary, in other words, a reduced function of the pituitary gland. Sex drive reduces or is absent. Abnormal thirst occurs. Weight gain around the hips and waist. Tendency towards ulcers or colitis in the GI tract seems to occur also. Increased ability to handle, to eat sugar without symptoms. In other words, you eat and eat and eat, it just doesn't seem to affect you at all. The pituitary just isn't directing the body to react to how much sugar you're putting in, so it's just dysfunctional, it's just not working. Menstrual disorders, women, or lack of menstruation in young girls can happen with hypopituitarism, okay? Thyroid, remember the princess. Women suffer more than men in this area because we really think that there's a direct relationship to autoimmune-based problems, and what we know is women deal with autoimmune-based problems more than men do, okay? Remember that body heat and metabolism and growth is controlled, but let's look at body heat. Those are very cold in the morning and have a hard time getting going in the morning. Thyroid should be something you think about. The autoimmune system associated with thymus or inflammatory tendencies. So if you've got arthritic symptomatology, you've had cancer, other types of things that are related to your autoimmune system, then you might think that the thyroid might be getting affected too. Here's the key component that you need to realize that doctors often don't have the time to sit down and explain. The thyroid makes something called T4. It converts to T3 Okay, and this is what they're doing on the blood test, okay? T4 and T3 or something called free thyroxine. But what happens is the conversion, 80% of the conversion process to the active form T3 occurs throughout the rest of the body and can be affected by your immune system heavily. So the thyroid isn't kicking out 100% of your hormone. It's actually making it, but the conversion process, only 20% is here in your thyroid, while 80% is throughout the rest of the body. So what's going on with your health throughout the rest of your body, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, cancer issues, etc., can affect your thyroid function heavily because it can disrupt this deiodization that actually occurs. So keep that in mind, that if you've got other conditions, thyroid might then start becoming a problem that wouldn't have occurred before. And that's also why Synthroid, taken over a period of time, can cause other adrenal problems and other type of organ problems. So watch carefully and be very diligent of communicating with your physician. Hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism, something called organochlorides, okay, pollution, okay, may affect its function. So does some synthetic sweeteners, okay? There's a test called the Broda-Barnes test. And the way that you do this test is you shake down an old-time thermometer, not the electric type, and make sure it's standing upright before you go to sleep. And before you get out of bed, you take it, and before you get out of bed, no bathroom break, don't reach over and get a sip of water, you put it right in your armpit, and you sit there for about 5 minutes. Take it, measure it, and write it down. You do it about 30 days. And you look at the average. If the average is below 97.8 degrees or above 98.2 degrees, possibility of a functional thyroid problem is there and should be addressed, okay? Because sometimes the blood tests will show normal, but your function isn't good, okay? So keep that in mind. I thought that was one of the best tests out there. L-tyrosine is a protein that has to be in the diet. So for those that are vegetarians, and for most commonly women who don't eat much protein on a consistent basis and don't get enough L-tyrosine, they may cause problems with their thyroid and their adrenal gland, because this protein is a key protein that has to be there for that thyroid to work. If not, the thyroid hormone is not going to be produced. If you've not looked at our seminar on proteins, you'll learn in that seminar, and that's a great one to get, is that when there isn't that protein in line, and it's an essential protein that your body can't produce and can't manufacture, then you'll cause this problem just because you're not eating enough of the good proteins that are necessary to get your thyroid working right, okay? A bad furnace creates all kinds of problems. Bottom line is, the furnace doesn't work, the house doesn't get warm, and lots of things start just falling apart. In your body, it's the same. When you're cold and tired, it's not a good thing for the body. It's meant to run in a certain temperature range, and if the thyroid's not helping you get there, that is a big issue, okay? Fatigue can occur, muscle, tendon, ligament, skin and bone, fibromyalgia, arthritic symptoms often occur in these cases. Slow digestion, can't digest foods very well, so now we're medicating for that. The nervous system becomes anxious, tired, fatigued, don't care, depressed, anxiety, okay? It can go on and on. The perchlorates that can damage, we know that they're used throughout the entire country and in manufacturing, so thus it's going to show up in your water. And remember, perchlorates is one of those things that is not mandated by the federal government to have to make sure it's taken out of your water. So if you're not protecting yourself with filtering systems, guess what's happening to you and your girls and men, but more so the females in your family. Okay, so try to protect yourself. The parathyroid, 4 little glands that sit basically on top of the thyroid. They basically do calcium and phosphate balance. They keep your blood up with calcium and phosphate to a level that they need to be, or if they don't, then you're going to end up with problems with contractions, nerve problems, heart conditions, and things like that. So the parathyroid is a very important hormone. It helps keep your strong bones and keeps them forming on a consistent basis until, if you're a woman, you stop forming bone mass in about 30 years old. Helps keep that heart muscle going and the rhythm going too. So when we look at hyperthyroid, hypothyroid, the dietary considerations is keep fluoride and chloride or chlorine out of your drinking water if at all possible, okay? These halogens compete with iodine as well as those perchlorates did, okay? And it makes it, will cause dysfunction of the thyroid gland as well as the formation of thyroid hormones, okay? Increase your water supply, 64 ounces a day. You've seen that before. Avoid hydrogenated fats. Use fresh raw oils such as canola, flaxseed oil, sesame, and virgin olive oils. Okay? Stay away from the hydrogenated vegetable oils whenever possible, as well as the heavy lard oils. Consider a low carbohydrate quality diet, and with the hypothyroidism that might occur in many of you, because that's more common than hyperthyroidism. Okay? If you haven't picked up Low Carbohydrate Dieting for Dummies, that is a phenomenal book to look at. Okay? So we want to limit the amount of grams of about 60 grams per day for overweight women and 90 grams per day for normal weight people of carbohydrate diet. Many of our diets in our country are just too high in carbohydrates. Moderate protein, low carb diet, or a low protein, high carb diet is counterindicated for those that have problems with fatigue and energy problems with hypothyroidism. So if you're a vegetarian, this might be a big issue, so please look at it. Okay? Even though it might work against the principles in which you're trying to fight against, but if you're tired and don't feel very good, you're going to have to at least consider this. It doesn't mean you have to eat meat. You just have to learn how to work with proteins better. Our protein seminar will help you there. Okay? Just consider that your diet plays a huge role in hyper and hypothyroidism. Here's some of the symptoms to think about. Difficult hyperthyroid, overactive thyroid, which some of us wish we had, difficulty gaining weight, even with a large appetite. Heart palpitations might occur. Nervous, emotional, as well as can't handle pressure. You just about explode when things just get over your head, okay? Insomnia, inward trembling, anxiety, night sweats might occur with hyperthyroidism also. Pulse rate is just high, even though you're resting. You haven't been doing anything, but it's about 10 points higher than it should be. Intolerant to high temperatures. You get too high of a temperature, man, you are done. You are cooked. Easily flushed. Okay, you get reddened very easily. Let's go to hypothyroid symptoms, kind of the opposite. Difficulty losing weight. Reduced initiation or mental sluggishness. Just can't remember anything, unmotivated, couch potato type person. Easily fatigued. Sleeping during the day, falls asleep very easily, can sleep all day and all night and still be tired. Sensitivity to cold, poor circulation, dry or scaly skin, ringing in the ears, noises in the head, and hearing impairment with hypothyroidism can occur also. Constipation seems to frequently be involved with low thyroid function. Remember, not enough energy to do everything, okay? Excessive falling out of hair or coarseness of the hair starts occurring. It's like this, even though this is probably genetic. If it was a hypothyroid problem and I started losing a lot more hair, or if you take your hands through and you see a lot of hair, that might be a consideration too. And headaches when awaken or wear off during the day. So you wake up with a headache and then it kind of gets better as you get going in the day, could be a hypothyroid condition. The adrenal glands itself, called the prince. The adrenal glands' overactive and aggressive characteristics lead to the name called the prince, the aggressive one. Okay? Hans Selye's work in stress, if you've not picked up our stress seminar, that seminar helps greatly in how you manage the health that you'll have in the future. Stress can be good, can be bad, it can be harmful, not harmful, but understanding Hans Selye's work in our stress seminar could change the quality of your life that you have from this point forward, because you'll understand you'll understand how you react to stress and what you can do about it to change things, okay? So how healthy is your stress? How does your prince respond to stress? That's what we need to know. It's a big supporter of the sex hormones. So if in fact the adrenals are not functioning, sex hormone function and performance and all these other drugs that have come out for performance issues for males and females, frankly, can be sabotaged simply because you're burned out and tired, and the adrenals, the prince, no longer works right because it supports sex hormone function. L-tyrosine, vitamin C, and pantothenic acid are 3 key ingredients to keeping adrenal function healthy. Okay? If we look at the diet that needs to be considered for good, healthy adrenals, remove processed foods, refined foods, such as white and bleached flours and sugars. Okay? Bleached and unbleached, it doesn't matter, okay? Also remove alcohol, caffeine, pops, coffee, teas, chocolates from the diet, any stimulants. Increase whole, complex carbohydrates, real grains, okay? Especially raw fruits and vegetables. Vegetables are are naturally high in sodium and are beneficial to the hypoadrenal person. Green beans, tomatoes, zucchini, onions, these also help also, okay? If we look at hyperadrenia, overactive, that might be where your high blood pressure is coming from. Headaches might be coming from, or hot flashes might be being pushed up because of hyperadrenia. Hair growth on the face or the body, okay, might be a question for females to look at. Masculine tendencies in females. Hyperadrenia because you're kicking out too much of the testosterone in your body naturally, but because your adrenals are over-pushed for some reason, okay? So during stressful times, we've had women report during highly stressful times over a long period of time that the adrenals have been working so hard that they start noticing facial hair and other types of symptoms of male characteristics. Why? Probably the adrenals are overworking, okay? Blood pressure is low in hypoadrenia. It's not working very well, which, by the way, is the most common thing I see is hypoadrenia in hormone dysfunction. You crave salt. I'm one of these people. Chronic fatigue, get drowsy easily, afternoon yawning, occurs frequently, weak, dizzy, just don't feel right on your feet, don't feel balanced. Weakness after cold exposure, slow to recover from injuries or exercise, which I started noticing in my 30s, which made me start looking into hypoadrenia. Poor circulation, cold hands, cold feet, frequent, okay? Niacin plus these other supplements for hypoadrenia might be something to do because they're safe with minimal side effects. And if you've not seen our vitamin seminars, pull those up and look at specific nutrients so that you understand this. Muscular and nervous system exhaustion, okay? Subject to colds, asthma, bronchitis, respiratory problems. Hypoadrenia goes with that. Mostly if you've had multiple courses of cortisone, you're going to get hypoadrenia much faster than everyone else. It's going to be induced because of those cortisones, because that's what your adrenals normally should be secreting. So if you start supplying it orally or on your skin, you're going to burn out your adrenals and they're going to shut down, and they're going to shut down other hormones that are important to your body. Allergies or hives, difficulty maintaining manipulative correction, in other words, balance is another issue. Arthritis tendencies, achy, soreness, stiff joints, nails, ridged and weak. Hypoadrenia, not just calcium, not just protein, could be both included with this, okay? Hypoadrenia, but ridged or weak nails, that's another issue. Perspire easily, slow starter in the morning, goes along with hypothyroidism, remember that, and afternoon headaches. Ovaries, about the age between 12 and 14 years old, earlier nowadays. In other words, we know that menstrual issues are increasing in our society faster. In other words, you're starting to menstruate, the girls are starting to menstruate earlier and earlier, approximately 4 months earlier every 10 years, as our society has continued to be more modern and there have been changes, okay? So if we kind of get an idea of what happens when we're getting ready to go through periods, there's something called the FSH. It's from the pituitary. Remember, that's that master gland, the king gland. Starts the egg production and started by something called gonadotropin. It's a hypothalamus. Now, this stuff might get difficult, but you can play it over and over until you get it, or you can fast forward past this, okay? So the egg forms in a fluid-filled sac, okay? The cyst sac, where it's there to nourish the egg and produce more estrogen for the body, and estrogen helps build up the uterine lining for the possibility of pregnancy. That's your first 12 to 14, that's your first days until ovulation time, okay? At certain point, the estrogen blood levels signal the hypothalamus to kick out something called luteinizing hormone. Luteinizing hormone is the signal, okay, for the pituitary gland. And between days 9 to 14, the LH hits a certain level, and the egg inches towards the to the outside part of the ovary itself, and then will break loose and fall into the fallopian tube. In fact, some people say it jumps into the fallopian tube, and then we enter something called the luteal phase. The reason why I ask this, explain this, because sometimes dads need to understand this. They have no idea what's going on. Sometimes moms don't know how to explain it, and sometimes ladies don't understand what's happening with their bodies. So I'm going to go through this in the hormone area, so tolerate it a little bit, okay? After the egg leaps into that fallopian tubes, the follicular sac fills with cholesterol and becomes the corpus luteum, something called a yellow body, okay? Progesterone made from cholesterol in abundance. So we have to realize progesterone is made from cholesterol, so all cholesterol isn't bad. It saturates the uterine lining with this mucus and lots of nutrients to feed an egg if it's going to be fertilized. And the egg searches in vain in certain cases, and the hormones come to a screeching halt, and then we start the period. Okay? If we don't get pregnant, the period then finally comes on. Okay? So at about 35 years old, fewer eggs are made and come to the outer covering of the ovaries, and they're also smaller. So the tendency to get pregnant after 35 is harder. Mid-40s, the inner ovary produces estradiol, progesterone, and androgens, male hormones, independent of the follicles, again, making it a little bit more difficult to get pregnant. Those are some of the reasons why as you age, there's change in hormone output as well as egg output, okay? Now, 3 sources of hormones exist in that person that's mid-40s. You got the ovaries, the hormones from the adrenals, and hormones from the livers and kidney, and fat cells. So the more fat you have and the more weight you carry, you actually secrete more hormones into your body that can create other health conditions if it's too much. So just remember that as you age, there's a lot of changes. It's not just the ovaries and the adrenals doing the work, okay? So important for us to know that, okay? And frankly, the reason why I go through that is so we get a better understanding of those things that can make a difference, okay? So when we look at that pineal gland and how it works in sexual maturity, okay, it may play a significant role. It creates something called a circadian rhythmic sleep pattern called the pineal gland. It makes sure that your body, okay, so we're taking a break from when the period actually starts to occur, how the female body flows. Now we're back to a pineal gland. A pineal gland secretes melatonin and serotonin. Melatonin lets you sleep at night. Serotonin's what your antidepressants are being used to keep serotonin levels up so you don't get depressed and you have a good day. So this little pineal gland that sits right between the eyes, right back about an inch or two behind the eyes, right in the center of the rostrum, it's called, sets up your sleep pattern of your body. So a pineal gland is just this little hormone that secretes these 2 little hormones. It's about the size of a pea also. It's very, very helpful because if you don't have good sleep patterns, the pineal gland might be involved. So it induces sleep and it helps you wake up in the morning. Seasonal affective disorder and depression can be affecting your pineal gland, so you have to consider that. Product called melatonin, remember it's melatonin, serotonin, is made by a protein called tryptophan. And again, those people who don't put much protein in their body can secrete and can cause poor night's sleep and depression because they don't have enough tryptophan in their body because they don't eat it. Okay, so keep these things in mind. All right, if you ever wondered why at Thanksgiving, when you've eaten a bunch of turkey and all that stuff, you want to sleep in the afternoon, you think it's just because it's full, you're full from eating all this great food. But the truth is, if you notice, at turkey time, it's much worse, much sleepier than ever before. The reason why is it has a lot of tryptophan in it. So adding a little tryptophan in the turkey form before you go to bed, if you have problems with sleeping, might help the pineal gland do a little bit better job. If you're a vegetarian, you're going to have to research that a little bit and see if you can do something else. Okay? If you've not looked at our sleep seminar, it kind of gives you about 20 to 22 different ways to help your sleep, and that will also be more advanced over this situation that we can cover in the body itself. Okay? I'm going to go to brain hormones. Remember, this whole seminar is about hormones, hormones. There's lots of them. It gets a little bit confusing, but we'll get on track as we get down the line. Okay? Brain hormones, what is one of the ones you've heard of is enkephalins, okay? Comes from the head. And endorphins that can be elevated to tolerate pain up to 50 to 200 times their level if these things are secreted. That's why somebody can cut off an arm or have something pulled off and still get to the farmhouse to call somebody to come and help them even though one of their arms has been ripped off. Endorphins and enkephalins are unbelievably effective hormones and very important. That's why a mother that sees the child trapped underneath the car all of a sudden has this inordinate strength and can pick up that car and pull that child out. Those things have actually happened and we think endorphins and enkephalins have something to do with it, okay? It's also related to something called opiates. It helps you feel great, high-spirited, thrilled about things. These endorphins seem to be secreted by the brain for those reasons. But they're also opiate-based. That's why painkillers can increase the opiates, make you feel great, but you can get addicted to that high feeling that doesn't come on naturally through exercise and other healthy manners, but by pill sources. And the addiction patterns for these things is very, very, very common. Other things that elevate it is acupuncture, chiropractic adjustments do it, intense physical exercise, and sex. That might be the other reason why that feels so much better, is because your endorphins and enkephalins go higher and are very healthy for you, okay? And it's a healthy way to get it, okay? A few things I want to explain that I think is imperative for you to know is the measurement associated with hormones, okay? If you ever hear something called 1 milligram, 1 milligram is 1,000th of a gram. In other words, you've got 1,000 grams, 1,000th is 1 milligram, okay? A 1 microgram is 1 millionth of a gram. Very, very, very small amount. 1 nanogram is 1 billionth of a gram. And at last, 1 picogram is 1 trillionth of a gram. Now, why would I cover all this silliness? It just seems like I'm just going off on all kinds of tangents. It's key. Very small amounts influence the body in a wide reaction. So the idea that small amounts can get into your system and can affect drastically changes in your body is huge. So we know that diet, exercise, herbals, vitamins, as well as bioidentical HRT, hormone replacement, is the best way to go, because small amounts of real hormones, including the melatonin, can strongly affect your body. Because remember, we talked about the melatonin. Maybe you could take 3 milligrams, which would be 3 out of 1,000th grams of a dosage. Well, that's a pretty good hit when you think about it. So I always tell people to take the lowest dose possible and realize that very small doses can inordinately change the body, okay? In early puberty, fat can convert precursors into estrogen. In other words, if we are early on and we're obese, we can produce more and more estrogen, pushing ourselves towards having a period just because of our obesity more than anything else, okay? Menses are 4 months earlier every 10 years since 1850. It's just getting more and more. And we know that. You've seen it. You suspected it. But this is kind of the measurement. 4 months earlier every 10 years since 1850. Approximately at 100 pounds. There's an increase in fat and puberty weight. And that's usually when the period usually starts. Doesn't mean it's always 100 pounds, but that's the tendency. So we could have somebody who is 8 years old at 120 pounds and start their period, while someone else is 12 years old at 90 pounds and hasn't. Well, fat makes a difference because it secretes estrogen, okay? So keep that in mind, all right? Cosmetics and hair products actually contain estrogen and placenta in certain cases because they just do, and there's no checks in this area as to their safety. So depending on products that you're using and having your child use at a young age can affect your estrogen levels. Pesticides, herbicides, and insecticides affect the nervous system through things called xenoestrogens that can make a huge difference as to this one issue of pushing estrogen into your body, okay? What we know is cosmetics, on average, a woman will absorb 5 pounds of cosmetics into their skin by all the topical stuff that they put on, creams, all those 5 pounds into their skin. What if your kid is doing that? What if you're spraying your house with pesticides? What if you're using herbicides to be able to kill all the bugs and insecticides to kill all the bugs? What if you're putting herbicides then on all the grass on the outside and your kid's going out and laying around and playing in it and you're cutting the grass? Can that affect you? The answer is multiple exposures can create a big issue. Growth hormones in meat is well known to be present, as well as in milk sources. Is it by itself just with milk when everything else is normal? Probably okay, probably. But when you add all of it together, can it affect you and your child's health? Drastically. So keep it in mind. Bovine growth hormone in milk, I've already mentioned that. Plastic wrap in sandwiches. You do not want to microwave with plastic over top of anything or in plastic containers, because xenoestrogens actually are part of the plastic. It's not any fault of the plastic. You just don't want to microwave it that way or heat it in that way. You know, those TV dinners, you keep the plastic on for a while, you got to get that off and put a paper towel over top so you don't drip xenoestrogens onto the paper and affect your body's health, okay? And possibly even water will have it, because we've already covered that also, okay? Let's talk about PMS. The Canadian family physician, Dr. Katrina Dalton, okay? Successful treatment with diet, supplementation, and occasional use of progesterone creams, most common and highly successful. Dr. Madeline Dredrin, from the time you're a preteen, from your very first inklings of hormone rhythms, all the way to the end of your life, you're given the message that your body doesn't work quite right, and that it's not okay to have rhythms and have changes as a preteen, which, by the way, can be controlled by the parents at home. Okay? In other words, it's normal to have PMS to some extent, depending on how severe it is. Okay? And the Canadian physician, Dr. Dalton, says, hey, there's very natural things you can do. How many times are those used? Infrequently in our society. In our quick fix society, we often have no patience for healing and actually managing the reason that we're getting the symptoms. We just want a fix to the symptom. While you're covering it up with that, you're taking mold and covering up with layers and layers and layers of paint, and that mold's going to continue to grow through your house and create other health problems. Just as an example, your body's no different, okay? Don't do it that way. Dr. Aline Rosenthal says that the hallmark of adolescence is hormone imbalance. In other words, to become that, you start secreting hormones. It's not even, confluent, consistent. It goes up and down. It goes all over the place until the body develops a pattern, okay? Therefore, the number of young girls who will be deemed a candidate for PMDD medication is astronomical if they go ahead with this, and that this is one major problem in our society. The most respond quickly to B6, magnesium, zinc, and correction of refined carbohydrates and proteins. Okay, so simple dietary changes with a little bit of nutrients can make a big difference on PMS. Simple, easy, inexpensive, and you get to control it yourself. Estrogen and serotonin are high in the first 2 weeks of your period, and 1 week before your period, it just plummets to the ground. That's where the mood swings occur. So supporting that might be helpful to making that person feel much more comfortable with the cramps and the moodiness. And eating sugar and a bunch of diet sodas so you won't swell is not the way to handle it, okay? Supplementation for heavy periods, according to Dr. Tori Hudson, okay, who specializes in this. Vitamin A, B complex, vitamin C with bioflavonoids, that's a key factor. Look at our nutrition seminars on vitamins and minerals, and I think you'll pick out some of those and watch those, and it'll start making some sense as to the type of nutrients you want to get, so you're not buying things that don't work and then consider that they don't work because they don't work, and the real truth is you bought something that was just very poor quality. Okay? Vitamin D, vitamin E, omega-3 oils, which is fish oils, and omega-6 fatty acids, which comes in flaxseed oil. Iron-rich formulas, magnesium, calcium, red clover, and berries, okay? And those are just herbals. PMS for boys. Dr. Stotland, MD, says the following. She observed spike in driving accidents with teenage boys. Adolescent surge of testosterone probably was the blame of the accident. But no one is asking the teenage boy to take drugs to keep them and everyone else safe. Sounds humorous almost, doesn't it? I think she was trying to be funny, but the truth is the research shows it. Now, how many boys are on the pill or a pill to sedate their hormones so that they don't have car accidents? Because they're the number ones causing these car accidents, aren't they? So which is worse, being crabby or being run over? Okay? Something to remember. We're out of kilter as to how we're looking at women and their periods monthly, and we're not handling it in the wisest way. Why? Because we just sedate and ignore, sedate and ignore. Let's start looking at it in a realistic format and give people a chance to have a life, okay? Children's hormone disruptors, okay? Pesticides, herbicides, insecticides found in fresh, frozen, and canned vegetables and fruits, okay? Fruit juices, growth hormones in hot dogs and hamburgers, and I can't say enough about the junk that's in hot dogs that's scary. Bovine growth hormones in milk, ice cream, and cheese. Estrogen-like compounds used by dentists. Plastic wrap that's used on sandwiches and things like that. Remember, if they're heated, it's the big issue, okay? Frozen's no issue, okay? So keep that in mind. Let's take now a jump to women, more adult women. Let's talk about the estrogens, the three sisters, estrone, estradiol, and estriol. Okay? Estradiol is the most bioactive estrogen and most dominant in growing up. The first site is the ovaries for its production. The same with progesterone. Most active in non-pregnant women. Okay? Estrone is produced by abdominal fat cells. So as you get older, or if you've gained weight early on in your age group, you're going to secrete more estrone than your body's used to, and more active in menopause. It should be higher in menopause, but not in early ages. Okay? And estriol is mostly generated in placenta, so during pregnancies. Okay? It's common in the body. It's a weak estrogen. It's relatively safe, but it's usually during during pregnancy. Okay? So let's look at the end result of estrogen, estrone. Okay? Estrone is made from adrenal male hormones, okay, or estradiol or xenoestrogens. Remember xenoestrogens? All those other chemicals that we put on our food and everything else, xenoestrogens can make estrone. Okay? Research indicates estrone may be even more carcinogenic than estradiol, and synthetic estrogen consists of estrone alone or in combination with estradiol or estradiol alone. So we were using something that had the most carcinogenic levels on our women, so we were causing not only increased cancer, breast cancer, things like that, but also more cardiovascular disease because we used a strong form that was potentially harmful to the body, while in Europe they were using other forms that were less aggressive to the female body. Oral estradiol is mostly converted into estrone in the small intestine. So the bottom line is, even when it was mixed, it ended up being reformulated into estrone, which was harmful to your system. Estrone is the most carcinogenic and is something that should be avoided. Okay? Fat cells' effect on estrogen levels. Unfortunately, for most women, not just estrogen created or stored in fat, but also xenoestrogens and other toxins that make excess fat unhealthy. So the bottom line is, your fat cells can be storing many things that when it's called upon to make estrogen, will do so and make unhealthy forms. So it's best to detoxify and make sure that your fat cells, your fat that you eat, is healthy precursors to your hormones, which are omega-3 fatty acids, flaxseed oil, fish oils, things like that, and not the vegetable oils and other things that are in society today. Weight loss can be dramatic if you have fat cells that have stored xenoestrogens over time. Some of us, I've had people multiple times say, you know, the more I try to lose weight, the worse I feel. The more that I get in the middle of weight loss, I feel so awful, I stop. Well, you wonder why. Maybe you're getting hit with this inordinate amount of xenoestrogens or estrogens that make you feel moody and awful. You just want to kill somebody. It might be because the xenoestrogens are in there and you might have to go through a detox program to help break them down and get them out of you so that they don't make you sick. So remember, 1 microgram makes a huge change in the body, and a fat cell alone can swing that. So good and bad estrogens? Bad estrogens, okay? It's listed right up here, 16-alpha hydroxyestrone. Estrone did not affect cancer cells, just so you know, if it was considered a bad one. DDT, DDE, and other synthetic chemicals are bad estrogens, okay? If you want to look at a site that I think is really helpful, www.ourstolenfuture.org, ourstolenfuture.org, great one to look up. Good estrogens, 2-hydroxyestrone, did not affect cancer cells, okay? Did not, okay? Just so you know, bad estrogens, DDT, DDE, and other synthetic chemicals did. And I think I said that wrong. I think I said did not affect. It does affect cancer cells, okay? But good estrogens don't, okay? Reason why is because good estrogens are in broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, and cauliflower. That's what always kills me when somebody says, well, the FDA didn't check it out. I said, okay. I was on with a doctor that was upset at me or talking about estrogen, good estrogen, bad estrogen, and the patient was trying to talk to him about good estrogens being in broccoli. He says, well, there's no good estrogens in broccoli. There's no estrogens in broccoli at all. And so he called me up and he was a little upset about some things. So we had a discussion about it, and I just said, what do you know about good estrogens? And he said, well, the body produces good estrogens. I said, okay. I said, you're concerned about what? I'm not sure exactly what you're concerned about. He says, well, I just don't want my patients starting to take estrogens here and there without the FDA's approval. I said, well, has the FDA approved broccoli for estrogen? He says, well, no. Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, because they all have good estrogens. He says, really? So I sent him over some information, and he was actually a physician looking to learn and try to grow and understand what's going on. But the whole idea of waiting for the FDA to check everything out of even natural sources is frankly insane for that reason, okay? Estrogen dominant symptoms. In other words, too much estrogen. Now, could we have an obese individual that eats poor quality foods, that does what most Americans do, make sure they have green grass, make sure the bugs are out of their house, sprays their house with all kinds of things, uses paints that are xenoestrogens, and eats out of plastic containers? Absolutely. Could happen all the time, couldn't it? Well, when our estrogen is so high, here's what happens. Decreased sex drive, irregular periods, heavy periods, bloating, fluid retention, breast swelling and tenderness, fibrocystic breast, headaches, infertility, cancer potentially, mood swings, weight gain in the abdomen and hips. Does this sound like many women that suffer? And it could be a woman that's 16 years old having irregular periods, heavy periods, bloating, fluid retention. It's just because she's getting all this estrogen. She's eating junk food all day long. Dr. Dean will tell you that alone can be the sole cause. Hair loss, thyroid abnormalities, foggy thinking, memory loss. Well, I thought it was just normal with menopause. No, it doesn't have to happen, folks. Insomnia, as well as fibroids or increased menses, okay? So estrogen dominance can cause ERT reliance, okay? Hysterectomy, frankly, it's common for just take out the ovaries and the uterus. That'll take care of it. Millions are on HRT and ERT. Maybe that's the problem. Too many people are on those type medications. That's dropped drastically lately. Young girls in early puberty are put on the pill. Could that make you, I've got people who've been on it 20 years because the doc didn't think it was anything. Have we done any long-term studies? No. No long-term studies on girls. We only did it on middle-aged and older women. Found out it was really harmful. It's the same drug, but we're doing it to young girls at 16 years old. We've got to think more, folks. We've got to ask questions and make those studies occur so that we know what's safe. Xenoestrogens, poor functioning liver because you don't get it out of your system, and endocrine system. Okay? Poor diet, low fiber diet, those things that you just don't detoxify, excessive alcohol use, birth control with estrogen, hysterectomy causing ovarian dysfunction, cortisol, high stress over a long period of time, competes with progesterone and can cause problems. And when estrogen dominance, also insulin becomes dominant and can cause other problems too. So we gain weight. ERT, HRT, and BCP in women and their metabolic products flush into our water supply, so we drink those things because those are not removed in the water processing factor. As xenoestrogens from 100,000 chemicals are in our environment and in our water and in our foods that we're putting in our mouth. A poorly functioning liver possibly can't get all this out of our system. And maybe it's just because it's so bombarded by so many things. Remember, 5 pounds of chemicals are put right on our skin every year besides all the other bombardment we've went through. And a diet low in natural fibers to get it out of our system, or antioxidants, or a healthy diet, or good nutrition and vitamins that are necessary to support all this detoxification may be a problem too. And those that just frequently drink alcohol and are also on birth control pills containing high amounts of estrogen, and even low amounts of estrogen if you're sensitive to it, is another issue. And just obesity creates more estrogen. Okay? So estrogen, a big issue, dominance, an issue, causing lots of other symptoms that you might be dealing with, so that you can start going down these lists and start correcting things. And maybe correcting the primary reason you felt so bad for 20 years? Good possibility. Good possibility. Let's not wait until you get a severe disease and then start seeing if we're going to deal with it in a different way. Okay? Progesterone, natural birth control. It starts shutting down ovulation for duration of pregnancy. That's its job. So progesterone's a natural birth control. In menopause, low progesterone can cause symptoms as much as estrogen. Okay? In menopause. Low at progesterone. So it's not uncommon during menopause to have people actually taking some extra progesterone and getting rid of lots of their symptoms. And there's plenty of topicals that you can get as long as they have the UPC, I think it's a UPC, but it's actually a pharmaceutical marking that you can get even in health food stores in certain states. Okay? If ovulation does not occur, progesterone stays low, creating irregular missed periods. So if you don't ovulate on a consistent basis, there's an abnormal problem going on. You've got your hormones messed up and you don't get them regulated, not by force, but by figuring out why in the first place and fixing it, progesterone doesn't secrete, and it can actually propagate this irregular period and missed periods, decreased sex drive, heavy bleeding. Okay, so that's a possibility. Women, do they need testosterone? Well, I tell you, they do. Women produce 7 times less than men. It's made in the ovaries and it's made in the adrenals. And after menopause or hysterectomy, when stress burns you out and your adrenal glands can't give you enough testosterone, testosterone is minimized or gone, making you moody, irritable, crying easily, upset very easily, taking things personally that you never used to take personally. Could be not enough testosterone because your adrenals aren't working well. Okay? So after long periods of stress or acute stress, that's not uncommon that testosterone just basically disappears and creates problems. Deficiencies or long-term deficiencies in testosterone might be muscle weakness, general weakness, lack of energy, lowered sex drive, and decreased quality of life. Just don't enjoy life the way it is anymore. DHEA, hormone of youth. At least that's what has been touted. The real truth is, it's not. In fact, it's one of the things I tell people to stay away from and tell them to supplement in other ways to support their body's production of DHEA, which, by the way, is very effective in comparison to just taking DHEA. It's a weak male hormone, and it produces estrogen and testosterone. Okay, so remember all the things we talked about, too much estrogen? You might be taking DHEA, get your testosterone up, so a few things get better, but you're promoting more estrogen, and you already have all the other factors pushing estrogen up, causing more problems. Okay, so it's something to be concerned about, and I don't usually use DHEA except for in very special cases on short periods of time because of that. Helps older women and adrenal burnout to improve sexual function temporarily, but we don't want to use that again long term. Supplementation may increase your endorphins and improve help your pain and pleasure sensations get a little bit better. So again, is it a bad hormone? No, it's just overused, but it should be used with a physician's knowledge and a physician that is knowledgeable to know what to do and how to work with you on this, okay? Herbs that help perimenopause, PMS, and progesterone support. Here's the list of them. We'll go through them fast, but at least you'll know. Black cohosh, Don Quai, evening primrose oil, ginger, red raspberry leaves, St. John's wort, chasteberry or vitex, wild yam root, and that's been frequently used. Add progesterone in creams that can be gotten almost anywhere. Just make sure that it has the USP sign on it, USP. Cramp bark, I wonder what that's for. Dandelion root, highly nutritious by the way. Motherwort, sarsaparilla root, squall vine, and yarrow. Okay, can help. Let's talk about chemicals and toxins, just because I think they're pretty important. We're going to just kind of skim through it, but I think it's important to know that 4 billion pounds of chemicals were released in the U.S. in 2000. 4 billion. 400 pesticides made up to 2.5 billion pounds of that total. And every rainfall, they contaminate water, seep into wells, reservoirs, and water tables, and end up in products and water that you and I drink. Another 250 million pounds were dumped legally into our rivers and lakes. So we allow a lot of it. And each of us eat 14 pounds of food additives and close to 150 pounds of sugar per year. So you look at the amounts and all these factors. Can you see how cumulative many of these things end up becoming a problem? So sometimes I get a little bit ticky about, no, you don't want to add this and you don't want to add that, because by itself it's probably not the issue, but when you add everything together it becomes a mound. And all we have to do is just have the straw that breaks the camel's back, and your health goes down the drain, and you see this decline of 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, until finally you don't enjoy the life that you have. So who is it affecting? Dr. Epstein says each one of us harbors 500 different chemicals in our cells. Traces of mercury, lead, and cadmium in our blood. Dr. Rogers says, and he did so much research on this, highly respected individual, indeed every living thing now has DDT in its tissues, and its toxic side effects are increasing over time. And we stopped allowing it DDT in our country 20 years ago, but not in other countries that we import our fruits and vegetables from. Keep that in mind. So who? In terms of scientific research and the environmental pollutants, there are no more control groups free of toxic synthetic chemicals to be found in the world. So we can't do a legitimate study on toxins and pollutants anymore. Brain, bowel, and hormones are included, including testicles and ovaries, and we've seen a gross change in the last 25 years in production of sperm, 30 years in production of sperm in this country, and they believe it's environmental toxins. Now you can see why. So how much? Dr. Colburn in her book, Our Stolen Future, describes it this way. Think of 1 part per trillion as equaling 1 drop of gin and 660 tank cars of tonic. This is just huge, but it affects you. So very small amounts can disrupt the entire human body, and if you're sensitive to that specific chemical, it can disrupt your system even more. Over 10 million women presently using synthetic estrogens, tens of millions using synthetic BCPs, birth control. Okay? Estrogens found in most bodies of the water tested now. In other words, estrogen's in it. We're having fish turn from male fish turning into female fish because of these estrogens. What do you think it's doing to your girl, your little girls, and your wife? DDT residues found in human and cow's milk throughout the world now. Since 1940, when DDT was introduced, incidents of breast cancer, prostate cancer have almost doubled, and testicular problems as well as sperm counts have reduced drastically. Okay? 4 generations of pattern. Why is it that all these chemicals are allowed? It's interesting. Reason why is because they know they can do a short-term study and know that probably it's not going to change a whole lot in your health. Okay? Reason why? We'll talk about it. Chemicals of concern may have entirely different effects on an embryo, fetus, or perinatal organism than it does on an adult. Okay? In other words, it doesn't seem to affect anybody, so we'll just keep it going, just like we did with DDT. Now it's affected the entire world. Effects most often manifest themselves in offspring, not in the exposed parent. So we're going to wait until our grandchildren get exposed to this before we actually take seriously what this is doing to destroy our lives in the future. Because they know chemically, most likely it's not going to show up for 2, 3, or 4 generations. Timing exposure in developing organisms crucial in determining its character and future potential. But we don't want to wait 4 generations until we find out if we get our chemical in, because we want to use it because it really helps us save money somewhere else. And in our country, we are not protected from this stuff. Although critical exposures occur during embryonic development, the manifestations might not occur for several generations. So they know that they can do almost any kind of testing, and it's not going to show up in our families until several generations down the line, and it's going to be our fault. Pesticide research. The Ontario College of Family Physicians found the following. No evidence that certain pesticides are safer than others. Rather, pesticides misconstrued as safe may simply have delayed effects on health, just like we talked about. Links between pesticide exposure and birth defects, fatal deaths, and many cancers among 12,000 studies reported between 1990 and 2003 is solidly documented. Women are more vulnerable, tough word, isn't it? They're more vulnerable because of the proestrogen or xenoestrogen issues. Okay? So keep that in mind. Okay? I can't tell you anything more. I always put this one, I think this is interesting. A good breakfast in 1970, University of Alabama, under the guidance of noted medical doctor Emanuel Sharaskin, fed one rat group sugar-coated cereal. Something common that many of our kids are getting. Then he fed another group the cardboard box that the cereal came in. This is what he found. The rats that ate the box were healthier than the rats that ate the cereal. Okay? When you eat junk food, not only do you eat foods detrimental to your health, but what happens to your stomach, what happens to your cells, and what happens to your future is affected too. So, just wanted to make a point of that. So for some of you, you might want to clean that stuff out and start giving your kids a chance at a life. Okay? Birth control pills, side effects. Here they are. Irregular bleeding and spotting. Oh, the birth control pill could actually cause the problem I'm trying to get rid of. Okay, got it. Nausea, breast tenderness, weight gain, water retention, spotty dark skin. Okay, vitiligo might actually be induced from it. Mood changes, migraines, may affect infertility. Okay, that's a big deal. by Dr. Dean. Blood clots, pulmonary embolism, strokes, hypertension, heart attacks, gallbladder disease, hepatic adenomas, and increased amounts of cavities. Side effects of the birth control pill. But, you know, it's better than getting pregnant. Just at least know the side effects. That's all I ask you. At least know, and make sure that you're telling your friends and family about the side effects. That's all I ask of you, okay? Just know that, all right? The xenoestrogen trap, okay, according to Dr. Dean, chemicals masquerading as hormones can stimulate sexual development, okay? Xenoestrogens are mostly chemical substances such as DDT and DDC that look just like estrogen. So they mimic it. That's what they look like. So even plastic looks like estrogen, and these chemicals can be stored in sensitive tissues of the body, okay? So we know they gravitate to fat cells. So these fat cells may be in the breast, for example, where they can cause inflammation. So fat cells have a very long life and can be storing these things that are pro-cancerous and can trigger the cancer at later years in our lives. So the results? Epidemics of allergies, arthritis, autoimmune disease, cancer, chronic fatigue syndrome, mood disorders, neurologic disease. Dr. Ferry says no amount of fancy genetics will explain this away. It's just what's happening with us doing what we're doing to our people. Breast cancer, National Center of Health Statistics. The number that have, remember you're hearing, breast cancer is all getting better. It's getting better. The number who have breast cancer was 131 out of 100,000. 180,000 diagnosed per year and 44,000 died of that disease. In the 1930s, 25 out of 100,000 died. Okay? In 2002, 29 out of 100,000 died. It's increasing. 2002, breast cancer incidences were up 40%. It's just not what you're hearing, is it? Manipulation of statistics can be done by anybody for any reason. Environmentalists believe that our love affair with chemicals and pharmaceuticals are involved. Thus, we are losing the battle. But being told we are winning it, and it's just around the corner. We're very close. Let's keep pumping the money in. Okay? It just doesn't make sense, does it? Researchers puzzled as to why so many women develop breast cancer do not have usual, even though they don't have the usual risk factors, but they're still getting breast cancer. It just doesn't make sense. Okay? Such as the onset of menstruation, late periods, late menopause, and frankly, infertility. That's grossly occurring in our country right now. These three increased lifetime exposures to estrogen can play a big role. And estrogen, excess estrogen is most commonly the direct cause of breast cancer. So you need to look at that in your family history. If you've got a family history of breast cancer, start looking at all these factors associated with it. Our notes should help you there too. Not long before they zeroed in on the prolonged exposure of xenoestrogens, possibly might be the answer to this puzzle. So start addressing it yourself and maybe it'll make a big difference. Okay? Important, serious, costly, family devastating issue. Okay? Symptoms associated with perimenopause and menopause. We're going to cover this. I think it's important. If you've had a hysterectomy, please go to hersfoundation.org, www.hersfoundation.org. Read about it. Nobody does a better job of educating you as to menopause as well as surgically induced menopause or perimenopause. I think it's important, okay? Menopause and hypoglycemic symptoms, kind of interesting. They're about the same. Fatigue, change in energy, memory failure, rapid heart rate, mood changes, irritability, nervousness, anxieties, depression, sugar cravings, itching, crawling of the skin, gasping for breath, lack of sex drive, head feels fuzzy, lightheaded, dizziness, headaches, hot flashes, fatigue, joint pain, muscle pain, chronic indigestion, obesity, blurred vision, allergies, and sensitivities. Same symptoms, aren't they? Menopause, called power surges. Hypothalamus could become overactive when estrogen is low, and trying to correct that, it kind of sends out too much impulse to everything else, so everything else goes crazy, giving you those heat flashes, okay? What we know is using niacin can draw blood away from the face so that you don't get all that hot flash. So niacin might be a possibility. Get the coverage of niacin vitamin seminar on our site, and you might want to order that, and that might help you understand how to use niacin appropriately and what its other benefits are. Wear multiple layers, but no turtlenecks, so that you can easily take them off if you have menopause power surges. Keep a fan handy. Ice water is very, very helpful to have around. Deep breathing can decrease the symptoms by 40%. So when it starts happening, just starting to breathe and relax. It also reduces pain up to 50% of the time too. So that might be something. And wear cotton to bed because it breathes easier and doesn't cause so much constraint. Okay? Take cool showers to keep yourself cooled down. Menopause power surges are real, and they're real irritating, and you need to try to at least some of these things that might help. Okay? Up to 20% of women develop bone loss postmenopausally at 5 to 7 years. Here, let me tell you why this is so important. Because we're doing a DEXA scanner for your bone density at, let's say, 50. And finally, you complete all your periods and everything at 52. Well, what we know is 20% of your bone mass is going to go away in the next 5 to 7 years normally, no matter what you do. So we do a DEXA scanner then at 55. Oh my gosh, your bone mass has dropped 10%. We need to medicate you. Why? Because they're not thinking. This is normal. It's going to happen. Wait until you get 5 to 7 years down the line. Oh no, I want to prevent it from happening. Let me tell you, while you're preventing it, you're also causing potentially other side effects and symptoms. So realize this one fact, because many of you are going to watch this, you're going to go, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened to me. I'm on this and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Just so you know, okay? Early 20s, you build about 98% of your bone, okay? So if you don't get enough dietary calcium, magnesium, zinc, and copper, and boron, okay, and vitamin D, bones are scavenged for all these nutrients. And by the time you become menopausal, you end up not having enough to keep you through the next years to come. The Western diet is chronically low in calcium, magnesium, vitamin D, boron, vitamin K, B12, B6, folic acid, protein, and high sodium chloride type of diets, as well as alcohol and caffeine. So we already know that. Dr. Epstein's Dirty Dozen, I think this is a great thing just for you to keep an idea on, okay? All contraceptives, hormones, and HRT, food additives, aspartame, food dyes, fluorides. We kind of covered most of all this. Premenopausal mammograms, he thinks is part of his Dirty Dozen. Heavy metals, mercury and lead. Silicone implants, breast implants. X-rays in pregnancy and childhood. A lot of question marks, he thinks, with the overuse of them. Animal fat hormones and antibiotics fed to animals that we're eating, as well as to us. Estrogenic pesticides, bovine growth hormones in dairy cows, household chemicals that are used for cleaning in our homes, as well as cosmetics is an issue. Lice shampoos, workplace carcinogens, lifestyle risks such as alcohol, dark hair dyes, dyeing your hair can create a lot of problems. So menopause lifestyle plan, this is what I'd like you to think about as something to try. Eliminate coffee, alcohol, and cigarettes. Eliminate stress as much as you can from foods such as sugar, white flour, and milk chocolates. Dark chocolates, I don't think too bad of. Eat a healthy diet, lots of fruits and vegetables, lean meats. Exercise regularly, can't say enough about it, it makes a huge difference. Maintain healthy outlook on life, a good attitude, finding a way to maintain some happiness in the middle of health, sometimes I call it. Identify the toxins in your life and remove them, decrease your exposure to those toxins, and maximize detoxification programs and processes, as well as nutritional support. You'll see a lot of that at secondopinion.org that should help you walk through it with our educational videos in that area. Our whole goal is education, education, education. So when you do select, if what we carry helps you, that's what we want you to use, and if it doesn't, you'll find something that does based upon our education. Reestablishing intestinal flora, balance is very helpful too. Stress busters, get at least 7 hours of sleep, relaxation exercises, deep breathing exercises, meditation. Yoga or Pilates is a great exercise program. Visualization is helpful to some people. And Tai Chi, smooth movement patterns for healing, are very helpful. And body work, deep tissue massage, lymphatic pump massage, and all those craniosacral therapy, these are very helpful. And for you that keep the stress inside your body, Biofeedback is very helpful. I went through it. I thought it was fabulous. And self-hypnosis. Okay, other menopause options, homeopathic therapies, acupuncture, bioenergetics can help. Chinese medicine with the acupuncture is very helpful, herbals and things like that. Massage, Reiki, which is energy work, can help some of you, okay? Menopause-friendly support, isoflavones, herbs, red clover, black cohosh, dong quai, ginseng, wild yams, progesterone, vitamins and minerals, DHEA in short-term usage, okay? And here's some of the other herbals. Blue vervain, blue vervain, elderberry, false unicorn, fenugreek, licorice root, mother's root, nettles, or nettles root, red raspberry, sage, St. John's wort, as well as sarsaparilla. Okay? Here's the isoflavones. Their potency, they're called soy-based isoflavones. They're 400 to 1,000 times less than estradiol. So it's a very weak estradiol, which is one of the healthier types of hormonal support to your body, okay? They act as weak estrogens and help to relieve menopausal symptoms while apparently blocking harmful estrogenic compounds. So it actually helps you on both sides. Decrease uterine and breast cancer risk, okay? So that might be worth it. Promoted as a cholesterol-lowering agent and increases bone density in menopausal patients in combination with exercise as well as other types of forms of bone assistance that you can go through, such as exercise, calcium, magnesium, boron, and things like that. Red clover, red cohosh, okay, it reduces face redness, so that might help those hot flashes that come through. Works well with niacin, okay? Black cohosh relieves menopausal symptoms, tames hot flashes, and is a muscle and nerve relaxant, reduces menopausal depression. So for some of you that struggle with that, that might be a consideration. Alleviates arthritic pains, improves digestion, and strengthens the pelvic muscles in your body, okay? Dilates blood vessels in the extremities and can help lower your blood pressure. So those are really helpful. Black cohosh in the clinical trials, 1998, 8 clinical trials of black cohosh found the following. It is a safe and effective alternative to ERT and can be safely used by women who should not use ERT, which is most women. Dong quai, high in phytoestrogens, good estrogens, by the way, for all stages of women's life. Pregnancy, I don't suggest. Perimenopausal and menopausal, I do suggest. Relieves hot flashes, better for stress. Women who suffer hot flashes and whenever it's cold and have a response to it, Dong quai is helpful for that. Supports the liver's detoxification. Increases vaginal secretions. In menopause, as you know, you sometimes get more dry and it's sometimes painful in sexual intercourse and other things. Increased vaginal secretions occur. Stimulates circulation to the face for a healthy glow and thins the blood instead of aspirin in certain cases, okay? Lessens heart palpitations and blood pressure can be assisted also. And wild red Korean ginseng is a herb of choice for menopause, okay? It's a tonic for the adrenals, liver. It's just a general well-being improver, something that you can consider. It can help the vaginal atrophy, it keeps the muscles a little stronger, and it helps prevent some of the thinning of the vaginal lining. So we know that's going to be a long-term use of red Korean ginseng. Common ingredient formulas given to infertility as well as and ovulation cycles, okay? So it's been used for many, many years, okay? Wild yam, rich source of certain products that end up helping progesterone being formed in the body, so it's a great phytoestrogen. It's been around for a long time. You see it in lots of products. It's a natural hormone replacement formulation in tinctures as well as capsules. It's something that you should possibly consider if you're looking at putting that into your body. Wild yam is actually often used as the progesterone USP formulation creams. And as long as it's got the USP formulation, you're probably going to be safe, okay? So make sure it does have USP or otherwise don't use it, okay? Wild yam is very safe in those cases. Otherwise, you're getting ripped off most of the time, just so you know. Others, the blue vervain, elderberry, false unicorn, and fenugreek are things that you're probably going to have to really look at. I'll leave this up on the screen a little bit so you can actually read through them. Licorice root, motherwort, nettles, and red raspberry leaves are very helpful also. Sage, sarsaparilla, as well as St. John's wort are also options. I want to mention two other things that I think are key important ingredients. If you look at Effexor, which is a common medication that is just tossed at ladies that are suffering with these type of symptoms. And reason why is because I want you to see the side effects are many times to the medication the very things that you're taking it for, at least to prevent. Nausea, 37%, headaches, 25%, sleepiness, 23%, dry mouth, 22%, dizziness, 19%, insomnia, 18%, constipation, 15%, nervousness, 13%, raised blood pressure, 13%, fatigue, 12%, and sweating, 12%. Again, Effexor, know the side effects before you take it for a side effect. Okay? All right. So just so you know, bioidentical hormones, I believe, is very helpful, very valuable, and as long as you get the testing done before and after, and you work with a competent physician, comparison to synthetic hormones, it's a night and day difference. So we hope that today, in our hormone seminar today, with bioidentical hormones as well as all the other hormones in the body, might help you make better choices when it comes to hormones in your body. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's seminar, and you'll look at some of our other seminars and the benefit that it might give you. We'll look to serve you next time on our next seminar or educational piece at secondopinion.org. This is Dr. Benzinger on Health with secondopinion.org.